welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Blake, I'm doing great. I'm fired up that we're going to get our first rankings reveal tonight. We're going to be taping a little bit of a reaction shortly after that happens, but I'm just excited to kind of see how the committee is going to be approaching valuing certain teams after they spent time this offseason telling us that they're changing the criteria.
Yeah, I do think that that's going to be very interesting. Is a Big Ten team not going to be ranked ahead of maybe an Alabama that maybe people thought that they should, right? Like, you know, like I asked the question, is Alabama, who is faced 4 ranked opponents out of the last 5 games that they played, are they going to be ranked ahead of somebody that maybe the general public wouldn't think that they should be ranked ahead of? I mean, that is the God's honest question that I go into tonight. And then here's the question. If you're the SEC and they're not, now what? Because your criteria is that strength of schedule matters. That's your criteria. So how are you going to uphold this? And let me just say this too, by the way. I saw a bunch of cataract wearing, non-Rolex wearing, non-kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing dudes putting their hats on a freaking coat hanger. Those dudes don't know ball. You going to tell me that a mathematician who's walking off in there knows what a 3-tech is supposed to do when opposite side zone is crossing his face? Get out of here with that.
I don't even know who's on the committee, so I'm not going to sit here and yell. I don't know off the top of my head.
Joe, the average age of the people on the committee's got to be 65.
Well, what does age have anything to do with it?
They can't see.
What do you mean they can't see?
You mean it's...
wait, here are the members. Wait, here are the members. Chris Alt, former Nevada coach. Chet Gladchuk, the Naval Academy athletic director. Jim Grobe, former coach at Wake Forest, Baylor, and Ohio. Ward Manuel, who's the Michigan AD. Randall McDaniel, former player. Gary Pinkel, former coach at Missouri and Toledo. Mike Riley, coach at Oregon State, Nebraska. David Saylor, Miami University athletic director. Will Shields, former player. Kelly Whiteside, professor of sports media and journalism. That one's dumb. Carla Williams, University of Virginia athletic director. That's fine. And then Hunter.
I don't like athletic director. I don't like
you. I don't like the ADs. That's the thing that I don't. There's too many athletic directors on here.
What does Hunter Yurachek, the AD of Arkansas, know about football?
Well, seriously, that's the. I was impressed.
You have a journalist and 4 ADs. So 5 members of your committee don't know what a 3-tech is supposed to do when opposite side zone goes across their face. You can't. You mean Hunter Yurachek was watching all the other teams in college football when his team was playing?
Well, I just find it confusing that I like the fact that there's a really big population of former coaches and players that were identified in there, but why are we giving voting power
to a journalist
that are decision makers for institutions as athletic directors? That is what I do. There's plenty of people that can be pulled from, that they could be using to do this.
Yeah, me.
They're not going to give you a vote.
Quadruple D says, wait, Blake's not bald. No, I have a good set of Italian hair with a little bit of a receding hairline.
I don't think you've not worn a hat in the entire season. I'm not bald either.
Yeah, in case I just went and got a fresh fade. The babes are out. They're moaning.
Show off.
Yeah, I'm showing off. My wife's like, I walk in the house and my wife was like, God damn. And I'm like, yeah, baby.
I don't believe that. What?
1,000% happen. What do you mean I'm not bald? Women love me and men want to be me, Joe. That's just the truth.
I'll have to take your word for it.
None of that's true. You're right. My wife would never say that. Nevertheless, we're live. Everyone do us a favor. Hit the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Every Ruffino and Joe show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Go download the FD Sportsbook app today if you're on Android, Apple, iPhone, wherever you are, or whatever device that you have. Joe and I will be placing our bets. We'll be giving you our picks tomorrow. The one place that we're doing it, and the only place that we're doing it, is with our partners over at FanDuel. For any thoughts, questions, concerns, go to FanDuel.com/RG for more details. And Joe, we had somebody the other night in the live chat after we got off says, what does RG stand for? It stands for reliable gambling. So what you can do on FanDuel, you can set your preferences to what you want. If you're betting too much throughout the month, it'll give you some ideas of what you do and don't need to do. Regardless of all that, that is why we partner with our good friends over at FanDuel, because of all the metrics and all the things they do behind the scenes. We're gladly honored and humbled to be partnered with our good friends over at FanDuel this college football season. But, Joe, let's get into the show here. As we go on, there was a report that came out today that Urban Meyer had been speaking to Penn State. Yesterday, you and I had talked about where is Penn State going to go. Then all of a sudden, here comes a report that Urban Meyer has been in talks with Penn State about their potential opening. Apparently, through a report that came out, there were some NIL conversations about what Urban Meyer would do, and apparently both parties went their separate ways. I'm not the smartest person in the world, and I know that that's going to get clipped of me saying that. I got to be real with you. I'm calling bullshit. I'm calling bullshit. You mean to tell me that a dude before NIL who paid players at Florida, who paid players at Ohio State, would go to Penn State and say, we're not going to get really in this NIL game? Get out of my face with that. I do think Urban Meyer would be a fantastic hire for Penn State. However, did you see the Penn State AD and Ryan Day kind of cutting up after the game? I wonder what that conversation was about. Who really knows? But regardless of all of that, I'm not buying these reports of Urban Meyer to Penn State right now.
Yeah, so Zach Gelb of Odyssey, Infinity Sports Network, was the person who reported this on his show. He said from two different sources. It wasn't so much that he was saying that Urban Meyer stated that he had no interest in focusing on NIL. It was more so that the conversation that he had with the Penn State administration apparently was not a satisfactory response for their perspective of what they needed to hear for a plan for using NIL to build the roster. Here's the big issue, though, is what you just said. Urban Meyer, if he's interested in a job like this and you're talking to him, you're going to let this, something as small, or not as small, it's obviously huge, but you're going to let a hurdle, like not liking his answer about NIL, sway you away from pursuing him? If he has legitimate interest, you find a way to make it work. You give him the infrastructure, you hire him a general manager, whatever it is, you give him the resources he needs to succeed. I just find that very odd that they would be talking to him and they would suddenly go, oh, no, we didn't like his answer, almost as if he was a G5 coach that was expressing interest in the job. Yeah, no, I think that I'm not going to go I will go as far as say I don't believe this. I do think it is kind of BS. I think that if Urban wanted to get back into coaching, he would be a lot more out in front of us as a candidate for some of these teams.
Continue to go. I just got some breaking news. Hold on.
Oh, I see that that Verge is getting promoted to.
All right, we got to shift something. Hold on. We got to shift. We got to shift to a conversation. Let me just hold on. Let me just ask you this before we get this news out there. Do you think that guys like Nick Saban and, for whatever it's worth, do you think guys like Nick Saban and Urban Meyer actually want back in their game, or is this all bullshit?
I think it's BS. I don't think that either of them have any interest. I mean, especially because they've publicly stated that they don't want to get back into coaching. It's not like when you talk to a coach who's currently holding a head coaching position somewhere and you ask him, like, what do you think of the interest in said job? How do you feel about it? Do you have any actual interest? And then they have to give their canned response of, I'm focused on my team this week. I'm focused on my upcoming opponent. It wouldn't hurt Urban Meyer and Nick Saban to publicly say, yeah, we're communicating with these teams, or I have expressed interest in getting back into it. I just don't think that it makes a whole lot of sense that where both of them are at this current moment, that they'd even be interested in jumping back into coaching, especially Urban Meyer stating that he has no aspiration to do so in his own show.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It would be absolutely insane if he did. Like, look, why would either one of them leave? Like that is my question here. Why in the good wide world when Nick, who's getting paid $15 million a year, allegedly 12 to 15 million, whatever it is, why would either of them leave? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Did you see Nick last night, by the way? I'm going to talk about this at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Did you see Nick in his blanket wrapped around for his birthday and his cake? That man ain't getting off that couch. I mean, I don't care what any LSU fan, at least I don't think that he is. But regardless of all of that, I don't think – I got to be real with you. The report in and of itself, I don't think those conversations were had. I think they were asked, and maybe he asked about NIL. Maybe he didn't want to go raise funds. I don't know. I'm just calling BS on the whole situation. But look, man, we'll see. We will completely see here in reference to maybe what Penn State wants to do and how things are going to transpire here. All right, we gotta change something. We need to get this up, okay? Yeah. I talked about this with you off record today, but we need to talk, or yesterday, and I told you this on Sunday, but we need to get this. I'm sorry, I got to transition to you.
No, you're good.
Verge Ausberry has been named as LSU's new athletic director. They did announce their new president today, and Dr. Wade Rouse, who is going to be the new president of the university. Dalton is going to be the chancellor and provost of the university, and Verge Ausberry is getting promoted after Scott Woodward was pushed out by Jeff Landry and this political stuff. Joe, there's something interesting here that we need to touch on. Verge Ausberry's son plays for Marcus Freeman. I know you don't want to have this conversation, but I told you on Sunday off record. Now we're going to bring this on record here. It seemed as if that this was kind of trending, as you and I talked on Sunday, that this might be where LSU goes here, but they weren't really sure if this was going to be what was happening. Joe, Verge Ausberry is going to go after Marcus Freeman, in my opinion. I don't know that to be fact. I don't know that to be certain. I'm not even saying, and I've told you this, and we had these conversations just to preface ourselves for when this happened. I don't know. I don't think Marcus Freeman leaves Notre Dame, and I don't think LSU goes after another Notre Dame coach. The bottom line here is I think he's definitely going to be in that conversation moving forward, and as we look in this LSU coaching search.
I have a couple of thoughts with this. One, and then actually this first one's a question. Verge getting this promotion, is it warranted? It feels kind of sudden. There hasn't even been a head coach is hired. Is it just because they want direction?
Maybe they want direction and alignment here. Maybe, I guess. I mean, that's from what I understand. I mean, listen, I got to be completely blunt with you here. I don't think they did their due diligence. And maybe
that's what I'm getting at. It feels kind of sudden.
Maybe needing to get a head coach potentially was in a situation where that you were in a place in time where you felt like you had to make this move because no head coaches didn't want to know who their athletic director was or wasn't. Okay? I think that a lot of things were going on here. I heard of a search committee that was supposed to be meeting on Thursday for what it's worth. And that search committee didn't happen. Clearly, it's not happening here. And the president comes in here and makes his decision, and he makes it final.
I can understand what you just said. I think is actually the smartest thing with the calamitous mess that we talked about last week, to have an actual direction established of this is who you're going to be reporting to. This is who is going to be handling the hiring. This is the person that's in charge of everything going forward. To have that established, I do think is important after there was a lot of action last week that could have scared away any promising candidates that wanted this job.
Did it? And
right.
Did they go out there and ask people, and Verge was the option that they felt like they needed to go with?
I think that based on my general understanding of Verge and how he operates and his son playing for Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, and Jaden Ausberry speaks very highly of Marcus Freeman apparently and loves him, which I think all of Marcus Freeman's players do. He's one of the coaches that you're never going to find a player who says anything negative about him because he's really good at developing relationships. I wonder if this kind of establishes that going after Marcus Freeman becomes the priority over Lane Kiffin. And if that ends up being the case here, because Verge likes Marcus Freeman so much, and he really has a high opinion of him. If they focus their energy on Marcus Freeman and they get distracted and avoid Lane Kiffin, that then allows Lane Kiffin to go elsewhere. And I bring this up all to say, from my understanding, I think, excuse me, the next few months, we're going to hear a lot about this, because I think that Marcus Freeman is trying to take advantage of the opportunity to improve his contract situation, his guarantees, his locked-in future at Notre Dame in order for him to stick. So I'm saying this to say you might be chasing after something that might not be there, and it might prevent you from getting Lane Kiffin.
Let me pause you for just a minute. This is let me just tell you the time. At 3:46, I posted a video of what's called Hold That Tiger. Okay. And what that means is basically the reason I did it was after the president was announced. Boom. Because it was kind of, Joey and you talked about this on Sunday. I'm going to kind of unveil what I think. I think Dr. Wade Rouse is going to say, hey, Verge, I'm going to promote you. You're going to do the legwork, but we're going to get a son of a bitch. And I got to be a little honest with you. I told you this on Sunday. I'm going to repeat it here. There are some pissed off boosters that BK didn't talk to. Money ain't going to be an issue on this one. I don't know how much it plays into it. Now, on the Marcus Freeman thing, I think that you're correct. I think both of them will spearhead this. I don't know if they're going to avoid Lane Kiffin at all. I think there's going to be 1A, 1B, and they're not going to tell either which one who's 1A or 1B. But like I told you on Sunday, I don't think Marcus Freeman will come here. That's an opinion. Let me just make that very well clear. It's an opinion. I don't think he's coming. However, it's not going to stop them from going after him. It's not stopping.
Well, and it's the thing is with that ultimately is, and I have no issue with LSU going after him. It's the result of Marcus Freeman being a great coach. He's a really good coach. At the end of the day, the only thing that I think changes in the circumstance is the aggressiveness of LSU. All it does is make Marcus Freeman more money at Notre Dame. That's the way that I feel about this.
1,000%. And listen, I told you again. I keep referencing Sunday. Regardless, this is what I've heard, and when we had the conversation off record, then I don't give a shit what you tell me. I know what I know, and I don't when I don't. There was a reason when these rumors came out last Monday of his name being on that big board, where when they started coming out for Penn State and Florida, Joe, within 2 days, he didn't say anything. He didn't say he didn't say anything for this LSU one. He did for them. I think stay with me. I think he's giving Verge a little bit of a layup here. I think that there's also some conversations like, hey, man, I need him to kind of believe that you're interested here behind the scenes. I need a favor here. And that could have also happened where Marcus is saying, hey, I'm not going to say anything. I ain't coming. But it's not going to stop Verge from going after, by the way, who he sent his son to. And it was, for the Ausberry family, one of the most interesting times here.
I also think with this, I think the way that you kind of framed it, there could be, from my understanding, there is going to be a lot of back channel communication throughout this process. And that was kind of what I just said a second ago. Marcus Freeman's going to get brought up a lot in the mix for this coaching search, even more so with Verge as the man leading this search. And as you've said repeatedly, time and time again, he is the guy that he likes the most. And just because that is the case, I think that whatever the back channel communication is, where we don't have the full scope and exposure to what those conversations were, it might just end up be setting the table for a Marcus Freeman extension. From my understanding and how I've kind of read things, it feels like this will set the table for that. Because outside of what the rumors...
Did they hire Verge for Freeman?
Because they thought they were getting Freeman? I think that would be really stupid, if I'm being really just purely honest with you. Because as much as Verge likes Marcus Freeman, I think it's a bit assumptive to feel that he would just be able to pull Marcus Freeman.
Do they know?
You don't know that. I think we're making a pretty big assumption here. It's been a week. I would find it very hard to believe that Marcus Freeman has made a quiet commitment to LSU if Verge Ausberry was named the athletic director. I would seriously think about that.
I'm trying to stress you out, but we don't know what's happened behind closed doors. We need to get to this. I know we got a lot of games we got to get to here, so I apologize. One thing here. In 2021, Verge Ausberry was suspended because there was a Hush Blackwell report and investigation that went out about allegedly covering up things that happened during Title IX. LSU is going to get a lot of pushback behind this, a lot, because of the Hush Blackwell situation. If you're not familiar with it, I ain't talking about it here. Go look at any AYS video. He got suspended for an entire year. To be real with you, I am shocked. I am a little shocked that they just promoted from within. I am too. I am too. And so with the conversation that you and I had Sunday, it seemed like it was going that way here, but I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So it's going to be interesting. But for LSU, who didn't have alignment the last time you and I spoke about them publicly on the show in reference to it, within 5 days they have alignment with a new president and sitting AD. Yeah, I mean that's a really fast action by them, and credit to LSU for recognizing that everything looks like really messy. Sounds like a coup. They really moved damn quick on this, which is impressive. Sounds like a coup. We'll see who they get. Let's see what this changes. Yep, we'll see. Sorry we blew up the entire front part of the show, but I thought that was a little bit more. No, I mean, this is more important. Last time we posted a LSU coaching update video, we got 27,000 views, so I'm gladly post another one. All right, sounds good. Oregon takes on Iowa this weekend, Joe. We don't know if Iowa's going to be ranked in this week's rankings. I'm assuming they will be on the college football playoff rankings, but we know that Oregon will. Let's just assume it's going to be a ranked game. But Oregon versus Iowa, what are your thoughts? Oregon is a 6.5-point favorite over at FanDuel if you're going to be betting on this game. Blake, I think that Oregon really needs this game for anyone who's been doubting how they sit in the perspective of the top teams in college football. It feels like things have cooled on them quite a bit since the Indiana game, and especially because of the way that the Penn State game no longer has the same level of shine that it once had. I think a lot of passers-by that haven't been paying attention to Iowa, I think a lot of those people don't understand how good this Iowa team is. I went back and watched Iowa's performance against Minnesota, and man, that game was an ass whooping. If anyone missed that game, I implore you to go back and watch what transpired there. Every level of the field, they dominated a good Minnesota team. I believe they're 6-3 right now. This is not a bad Minnesota team that they smoked. They scored a punt return touchdown. They forced multiple turnovers with just big plays, and then they also were able to completely maul Minnesota on the ground. Like, I think that Oregon's going to win this game as we open up this conversation. I think that they need to start fast. They need to attack, and they need to put Iowa on their heels in order to be chasing them because they're just not going to be as naturally explosive. But, Blake, this Iowa offense is very creative when they come to running the football. And this defense, as it's always been under Phil Parker, is really damn well coached. This is a legit challenge and one that should be a ranked-on-ranked matchup if it weren't for the AP poll being really bad at their jobs. Well, the AP poll is irrelevant now because college football playoff rankings are coming out, so it's completely irrelevant. I am wondering, Joe, going into this one, when you have Oregon, who they haven't been bad offensively throwing the football around. They're 50th in the country in passing yards. But you're going up against a top 5 ranked secondary in Iowa, who's always been really good under Phil Parker, as you alluded to. What are the challenges that this Iowa defense is going to present for Oregon? Now, I agree with you. Basically, what you're saying is over time in this game, you probably feel like the athletes are going to overtake. This offense can't score enough if you're Iowa. If Oregon does start making mistakes and they start turning the ball over, this one's going to get pretty damn interesting if Iowa can't upset them here. But, Joe, you're right. I don't want to say the only way that Iowa can succeed here, and I'm not saying that the only way that they win is if Oregon makes mistakes. You're going to have to force some turnovers to give your offense the ball to have time of possession to go in there and score. If this gets anywhere north of 24, 25 points, I don't know if Iowa can score enough points to win it. You're talking about still one of the worst passing offenses in the country. They're 130th in the country. They're 119th in total offense. They're not even really good at time of possession, by the way. They try to hold on to the football, play smash mouth football, really good defense. Joe, they're not doing that well right now for what it's worth. But this defense is very opportunistic. They're really good in defending the run. They're really good in the secondary. The only thing that they haven't been great at is getting off the field on third down. They're not in the top 25 there. It's the only statistical category that they're not in the top 25 in defensively. Just another really good, really good Iowa defense. Joe, I just don't know how they score. I mean, every time that you and I talk about Iowa, this is legitimately one of those situations where I just can't – I don't know where and how these situations continue to transpire here when they're so bad offensively. But the bottom line is they're really good on defense. They can turn the ball over. I just don't know if they can score enough. Like, I really don't. And that's going to constantly be the reason why I think teams like Oregon will continue to beat them, even though they're really good on defense.
I just like to slightly reframe for Iowa. I think that they've shown an ability to succeed offensively and to produce big games. When they've blown teams out, it's been the result of their defense setting them up with some really favorable short fields, which has been advantageous for them. And then we just mentioned, like, they get a lot of big special teams plays as well. They're actually very efficient at running the football. They're 25th in the country in EPA per rush. Where they have problems, and why I alluded to at the beginning, if you attack and you build a quick 10-point lead, I would feel very uncomfortable if I was an Iowa fan trying to play catch-up. 124th in EPA per pass in the country. They are just not an efficient, explosive offense when it comes to trying generating plays through the air. I've been a Mark Gronowski fan. I think that he's shown since the beginning of the year when he was really struggling some improvements with his abilities as a passer. But he has to be able to take a couple of shots here and there if this game does end up being in a spot where they are trailing. The one big guy that we got to pay attention to, Caden Weegan, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. That dude is a do-it-all offensive weapon for this Iowa team. I'm shocked that more people are not talking about him nationally just as one of the better playmakers in college football. That kid does so much for this team. The one big major challenge that comes into all of this for Oregon, Blake. Oregon, and this is very quietly been happening. I'm surprised that we haven't discussed this more. They only have 13 sacks on the year. Their pass rush has not been as productive as we thought it was going to be. Now, they've got a really good front seven. Amari Washington, we love. We love Mateo Uiagalelei. Bear Alexander has been really solid for them. Them not being able to get after the passer is going to be really troublesome when they're facing this Iowa team with one of the best offensive lines in the country, only allowed 11 sacks on the year. And they've got a lot of really, really solid dudes from Gennings Dunker to Logan Jones. That is going to be a really, really tough battle for them. They got to find ways to produce success. Otherwise, Oregon could be the team that's on their heels because they're not able to generate penetration, and they're also not able to get all over Mark Gronowski.
I got to be real with you. Here's another thing. You bring this up, and I just want to throw this your way. If they're able to get after more and they're able to limit this run game, kind of like what Indiana did, I got to be blunt with you. I think this one could be a little bit of a dogfight for Oregon.
Oh, I agree with that. I think they're going to cover that 6.5 point spread, but they win.
I do too, but I also sit here and say to myself, like, Joe, I got to be – I hate to say this, and Oregon fans are going to yell at me in the comments for saying this. You kind of are in a prove-it spot a little bit, right? Because what do we know about Oregon at the current moment? Look, you went into a hostile environment against Penn State. You went in double overtime. You basically ended the James Franklin era. Like, let's just be blunt. Okay, you go up against the next best team that you face in Indiana, and you're unable to really sustain. You're unable to finish drives. You're unable to push the ball down the field enough, and you can't do it. Well, Joe, I got to be real with you. I think a lot of people have cooled on Oregon, and it's not that they should care or that they do care at all, but I got to be real with this is a prove-it game for me in a lot of ways for Oregon. Not so much Iowa. Iowa is who Iowa is. They're the same team every single year. They got Vander Beck, Vander Esch, Vander this, Vander that. Every Vander in the country plays for Iowa, I feel like, every single year. But you get what I'm saying here. They're the same team. You know what you're getting from Iowa. What am I going to get from this Oregon team that's about to get tested? Listen, man, you have not been efficient in throwing the football the last month, and that is not an opinion. That is a fact. If you take out the first month versus what you've done now, going from the number one passing offense in the country, where you're now sitting at 50th, Joe, there's been a little bit too much clunkiness with these young wide receivers. And with Moore here, can they find a way to really push the ball down the field when they need to with a really talented unit? They're all talented. Oregon's got more talent than anybody. They're inexperienced. Can they start building on that? And I think it's a massive prove-it game for Oregon this weekend.
I don't think it's unfair to assert that on Oregon. I think that they're going to take advantage of proving it. But here's where I think that the perspective has to lie based on the outcome. Just because Oregon wins this game by 4 does not mean that they are, they played a bad game and they're overrated or whatever. I don't want to hear any narratives from across the country that this Oregon team struggled with Iowa and it means that they've got XYZ issue. They're going on the road to Iowa in what is typically one of the most hostile environments in the Big Ten. This is a typical upset spot for a lot of teams. So the way that I'm ultimately putting this perspective, as you're saying, it is a prove-it moment. If they win this thing and they win it close, that to me is incredibly impressive. I agree with you on this. Dante Moore has been tremendous. He got banged up in the Wisconsin game. It feels like he's still playing at a great level, but like he's the same way that this Oregon team is cooled a little bit. They're going up against what is a very well-coached and efficient, consistent, steady defense secondary for Iowa. They are going to keep everything in front of them. They've got very underrated athletes across the board in their secondary. They're going to be able to make plays if Dante Moore takes risks that aren't worth taking. I think that we're going to really find out and I think really establish a new perspective on how we talk about this Oregon team based on how this team goes.
Joe, I know we yell about this in the power rankings, but it's just the truth. I've cooled on them a lot because you talk about domination for teams like Indiana. What is the dominant thing that you do if you're Oregon? Do you do anything dominant? Now, I know you can go statistically, they do this. They're really good in pass defense. They're first in the country in passing yards allowed. Okay, but I also saw Indiana's receivers really out-physical you in a lot of big situations. Wisconsin can't throw the ball to save their life. I mean, there are teams in the Big Ten that you play that can't throw the ball to save their life. You're going up against another one. Look, I'm going to lean Oregon here, but this is a massive prove-it game for them and for me to see them this weekend, and we'll see how they see what they're able to do here.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up transpiring, but I think Oregon wins. It's another opportunity to kind of establish themselves. I just hope Iowa's ranked on the committee ranking, and this game has a little bit more cachet to it, a little bit more excitement to it, because they should be. Iowa should be ranked. They're much better than they're getting credit for.
Well, look, I think that there's teams let me give an example. I'm just going to throw this out there. Brother, they're probably going to have BYU in the top 10 tonight, and I'm going to freak out.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
I'm going to freak out. So you can come back later to the channel when Blake is going to freak out on BYU. But it is what it is there. It is what it is. Prove it game for Oregon. Let's see what they're able to do here. All right, let's move on. Joe, Georgia versus Mississippi State. Mississippi State coming off their first win in the SEC with Jeff Lebby. Georgia hangs on against Florida in Jacksonville in the world's largest cocktail party. When you preview Mississippi State and Georgia, what are your thoughts?
Georgia is a 7.5-point favorite in this game, which is kind of surprising. I would think that they would be a much bigger favorite, even though they're on the road going to Mississippi State with this, difficult environment that they're going to be thrown into. Blake, I think that this needs to be the game where Georgia wins and they win confidently. I understand that Mississippi State has been a far more challenging team than everybody expected them to be this year. But Georgia can't have another game where they're winning a close one. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that Georgia is going to be extremely explosive in this. I think that they're going to be able to generate a lot of big plays going up against a Mississippi State secondary that, quite frankly, has plenty of issues. They're also atrocious at stopping the run. They're 109th in EPA per rush. They're just getting ran all over. This is one of those games where Frazier and Bowens just completely go off and they run past Mississippi State. But road environment, those cowbells are going to be loud. You can't overlook any of that stuff because of what Mississippi State's going to throw out there in the fight that they've been putting up over the past couple of weeks.
I look at this game and say to myself, Joe, I really like how Mississippi State plays. I know they're not winning. I know they've had issues. They've gotten better. Last year, they were absolutely atrocious. I mean, they couldn't block. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't run. They had some good players. They identified well in the portal. They did some really good things in recruiting. Look at Mario Craver. You know, we saw what Michael Van Buren did for them and then what he did 2 weeks ago. They had a lot of really good players. However, this team's getting better. And I know that they got their first SEC win under Jeff Lebby. But, man, I got to tell you, when I went back, which I did today, and I look at, like, how far they've climbed, Joe, think about this. They've climbed so far 25 spots in rushing over last year, 37 spots in passing. They've climbed 71 spots in total offense. They've climbed 51 spots in total defense from a yardage standpoint. They are getting better. When I watch Mississippi State play, they do not have the athletes that Georgia's going to run out there. They don't. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. Brandon Walker at Barstool knows that. Stingray knows that. Everybody that's associated with Mississippi State knows that you do not have the dudes that they do. But they got some guys, but they play with serious heart, and they never give up. I say all that to say this. Georgia has been abysmal, and I mean abysmal, at starting off games this year. First drive, they'll go down there, look like the 1985 Bears. Well, maybe not. That's defense. They'll go out there looking like the 2019 LSU Tigers. How about that one? Because they're scoring on every first drive. Joe, they are literally going out there punching teams in the mouth with the scripted plays with Mike Bobo. But then they just start hitting lull after lull after lull offensively. And then the Florida game happens. Then the Tennessee game gets in the situation that it's in. They get in that same situation with Alabama. They're not able to overcome. It's happened to Georgia multiple times here, and it continues to happen with them. Oh, let's think about Ole Miss. Ole Miss comes out and punches them in the mouth. They're starting off slow. You can't start off slow against a team that you can completely overpower because this team cares. They got complete buy-in with Jeff Lebby from the staff, from the players. I don't think they're winning. But you can't go out there and look ahead. You can't go around there and play around with them. They got athletes all over the place too, just not as many as you do. One thing that I love about this team, they run the football with Booth and Bothwell. They're very effective. They're very physical. But, Joe, when I preview this matchup, as much love as I want to get Mississippi State, they can't stop the run to save their lives. They have been beat up in their front seven. They're 94th in the country in run defense. This is exactly what Georgia wants to come in here and do, is line it up with Bowens, with Frazier and the boys, along with Stockton and some RPOs and some zone reads and veers, and they want to run it right at you. It's just they're not ready for this, and they're not ready for Georgia to come right at them and go downhill, which is exactly what they're going to do. It's exactly what Arkansas did for a lot of points and times in that game. It's just a bad matchup for them because their biggest weakness is Georgia's biggest strength right now, and I think this might be the week that Georgia starts off hot. But I love the way that Jeff Lebby and this team has rallied behind them. They're getting better. But, man, I just think it's going to be way too much.
The one pivot point in this game that I think is really interesting to track, Mississippi State's offensive line has been atrocious. They allow a lot of sacks. They've allowed 29 so far this season. It's been their biggest weakness, and quite frankly, it's really hurt them. It's caused them to go down in games at times. And it's hindered some really nice performances from Blake Shapen. We have talked about multiple times that Georgia's pass rush is not good. It is non-existent. They had no sacks last week. They have 8 team sacks. Is this a game where they finally get home? Or is this a situation where Mississippi State starts to put up more production, more passing production than they typically do because they're not getting challenged, because they're not losing their reps and they're not giving up pressures to Blake Shapen? I don't 100% know what the deal is with Shapen's injury because he went out for a period of time, then he came back into the game against Arkansas. But I got to just throw this in there. That Kamario Taylor kid is talented. That kid was fantastic when he stepped in for a period of time against Arkansas. He has some fantastic mobility. He had some really nice poise and composure for a young man who was stepping in with really no experience. All I'm saying is that when Shapen's gone, that Kamario Taylor kid could be the next man up with how good Van Buren was supposed to be last year. Taylor could be that next guy that does some amazing things.
I got to be real with you. I'd go to him. I know he's going to stick with Shapen, but you don't have a lot to lose here. I go to him, but I know he wants to stay with Blake Shapen. Look, here's an interesting thought in this game. Thompson, the wide receiver, and the receivers that Mississippi State has, Joe, they have some explosiveness here. I want to point this out to you. This secondary for Georgia has not done well against a lot of speed on the perimeter, especially out wide. Mississippi State has it. They have a lot of it. Thompson can fly. These guys on the boundary can fly. The only reason I bring this up is Georgia can't get home and getting to the quarterback and getting sacks. If you're allowing Blake Shapen to sit back in that pocket and be able to get Thompson and those guys the football, this could get interesting now. I don't think it will because Georgia can line up and just run the ball on them. They've gotten very much beat up, and the lack of depth is really hurting Mississippi State at the current moment. There is a weakness that I think that Jeff Lebby and the team can exploit here. We've seen Georgia constantly give up again a lot of yards against teams at wide receiver that got a lot of speed. And look, you got to give Lebby credit. They do have a lot of speed there. I just don't think it would be enough. It's going to be enough. But I still in the back of my mind, something saying, well, Blake, they can't get to the quarterback. And if you give Shapen in this fast wide receiver room some time, things could get interesting. I don't think it gets there, but it could get interesting.
That's kind of what I'm getting at here. Is that I don't know.
Fast, dude. Thompson's got some real explosiveness. You need to look into him. I know that y'all do a lot of draft coverage. Listen, you know I come up with these random like, hey, Joe, you should look into this guy. Dude, he's got a lot of speed.
I got to peep him. And Anthony Evans also has been super productive. It's kind of what I'm getting at here. I think that Georgia, they have an easy opportunity to overpower Mississippi State. They do. And I think that they should come out of this game and cover that 7.5 point spread. But this is why I referred to the sack situation as the pivot point. It really completely swings the game in one direction or the other, because if you don't get pressure, they have time to operate. They have time to generate big plays through the air. Game ends up being tight. If you start to get pressure, like every other team has done against Mississippi State, your athletes in coverage should prevail. You shouldn't have any issues in coverage. Like, you should be able to collapse the pocket and stick with guys in that regard.
Joe, who have they? But I just ask this: who have they done that effectively to over a long period of time?
They haven't. The games that they have gotten pressure have been in matchups where they've played teams with bad offensive lines. Like, whenever they faced a team with an average offensive line or better, are the games that they haven't gotten home. So, like Mississippi or Ole Miss, Florida last week was an example of that. Alabama was an example of that. Whenever they've faced a team that was at least average.
Now, listen, you said something about Ole Miss. Tempo really hurt Georgia early.
Yeah.
Lane literally came out and said that, listen, the tempo and the tempo stuff that I use came from Jeff Lebby and it came from Art Briles on why we do it. How much are they going to implement this, and how much of a big factor is it going to be here? It could be a big one. Look, Georgia's going to have to go get some pressure. I got to be real. I think Glenn needs to start sending some heat. He's going to have to start being creative and sending some heat. I know it's not what they want to do, but I guess we'll see here. So, look, bottom line is listen, everybody wants to talk about, oh, this guy's not winning. I continuously see growth with Jeff Lebby. I do. They're going to have to give him a lot of time. And I mean it. Give him time, and I think he'll be fine. Let's see what they can do there. Joe, last game here, Indiana versus Penn State. When you look and preview into this game, what are your thoughts?
Indiana on FanDuel, 14.5-point favorite.
I don't know why we're talking about this game. You're forced to talk about a 3-5.
Do you want to talk about Notre Dame versus Navy?
Yes, I did.
Well, we'll do it tomorrow.
Because I'm picking the midshipman to upset.
Okay, now you're just being Now you're just trying to cause problems. Blake, there's not a lot of great games this week. I think that this is still an important game for Indiana. I don't think that there is going to be any chance or spot that Penn State challenges Indiana whatsoever. They have really struggled since they've moved to Gronk Meyer. He's got no touchdowns, 3 picks. He's taken 5 sacks in the 2 games that he's played. Their defense has tremendously regressed. They have only generated 14 team sacks. They're one of the worst red zone defenses in the country at 95.7%. They are just getting completely cooked in every area. And we watched it. We watched how Ohio State was able to completely expose them. We know that this Indiana team has the ability and the willingness to completely embarrass every single team that they go up against. I don't see a world that suddenly that changes for Penn State. They've got some really good athletes. They've got some really solid players that have not been playing up to their true potential. But I will say we do have an opportunity to compare Ohio State and Indiana. And to have a comparison
Are we going to do the transitive property thing?
No, it's not transitive property. All I'm just saying is that for everyone who wants to compare
then what's transitive property?
That's not what I'm saying. All I am saying is that if we're looking for a data point of how did these two teams look when they played the same team in back-to-back weeks, who beat the crap out of them better?
I got to be real with you.
Good roster. They're just not playing well at the current moment.
I got to be real with you. That thought has been going through my mind all day in reference to.
There you go.
You know what the most Curt Cignetti thing is? This is how I wanted to leave my takeoff with. You know what the most Curt Cignetti thing is? He's going to try to run this thing up.
Yes.
He 1,000% is going to try to run this thing up and try to make a statement. Penn State, I'm sorry. I don't like doing this transitive property thing, though. Right? Like I don't. And because let's be honest with ourselves. Ohio State definitely took their foot off the gas. They didn't care. They didn't care in the fourth quarter. They could have completely obliterated Penn State. They could have scored 60 if they wanted to. They definitely took it easy on them. Let's just be real here. I mean, for crying out loud, Julian Sain was 20 of 23 with 4 touchdowns. Like, if he wanted to keep going out there throwing the ball around with their starters, Joe, they would have obliterated them. Like, again, for the love of God, let's just be real. Cignetti can make any statement he wants. It doesn't change my mind about Ohio State. That's what I would say to that overall. You can beat them 70-0. I won't care. I will not care. I'm being real with you. I'm not going to care. They call me Big Ten Blake. You know that? I'm also Big Ten Blake. That's what they call me, and it's what the chat calls me all the time. Joe, this is a horrible matchup, though, for Penn State. Worse than last week, in my opinion, because you have a team that wants to make a statement. Ohio State doesn't care. They want to beat you. They want to beat you convincingly, and they want to get their work in. They want to beat you. They want to show dominance. I'm not saying they don't, but they can call off the dogs. Cignetti's not there yet. It's like, for an example, like when you have an up-and-coming boxer versus the reigning champ. The reigning champ knows when to kind of like, the end of the round's coming. I'm going to give him a couple jabs. We're going to go into the second round here. Cignetti's like Mike Tyson, brother. He's looking for the knockout in the first round. And so I feel like that they're going to try to do that. This defense is still not bad for Penn State. Their secondary has still been good. I know last week a lot of people don't want to give them credit for that. Mm-hmm. But, Joe, they can't stop the run, though. And this team is not a team that you can be very leaky defensively. I got to be real with you, man. I just think that this one is going to be another bloodbath.
It absolutely will be, and I do agree with your assertion that any chance to kind of prove everybody like, hey, we're going to beat the crap out of this team way worse than you did. Cignetti is going to take advantage of that. Indiana is far more equipped at the current moment than Penn State is to get into a fight like this. The only thing, if we were to identify an area for not success, but an advantage that Penn State has, their offensive line has quietly been one of the best in the country. the full group has been tremendous. Could be a couple guys that get some big NFL looks from that offensive line group. 11 sacks that they've allowed this year. 11. Indiana's pass rush is tremendous. 29 sacks on the season. They've got a deep group. It's not just Kamara. You've also got Isaiah Jones, who's got 5 sacks. Hardy's got 8 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. They're getting sacks from everybody.
When teams are doubling Kamara, if you notice in slide protection, other guys are eating, to your point.
Yes.
Why teams are sliding to Kamara is dumb. You need to chip him. But that
Kamara's good, but he's not like double team good. So that is a good.
But they're sliding to him is my point.
Yeah.
Like go back and watch Oregon. They shouldn't have slid to him. But look, Penn State can go do the full damn cha-cha slide to the left, slide to the right. It ain't gonna matter. Cha-cha now, y'all. It ain't gonna matter. You ain't stopping them.
This is my point, though. That
was funny. Laugh at my dad jokes for once.
I did laugh. I'm not gonna give you a. I was smiling. That's the most that you're gonna get. If my dad makes a joke, he gets a smile. I'm not giving him a full laugh. Blake, my point is that this is the best offensive line that Indiana's seen. How does their pass rush look? Are they going to be able to still create pressure and get home, even though that they're facing a legit, really solid offensive line? Everything else, though, Indiana has a massive advantage. They should expose it. And to reiterate the point for the third time, I think that Curt Cignetti is writing down the score of last week, and he's going to try and beat that. He's going to try and get the high score. That's going to be his goal because he wants to be able to say that this is what we do.
I got sent the viral TikTok today. Did you see of Curt Cignetti? The top 10 Curt Cignetti comments.
And
he looks at the first one. The first of it is he looks at the reporter and goes, "We're 10-0." She goes, "Yes, you're the first time. This is the first time Indiana's 10-0 in its history." He goes, and he goes, says some smart ass comment. I agree. I don't look. When we talk about Penn State, we're talking about them as a lame duck because they are. I got to be real with you against a team versus Ohio State. Maybe they had some fight in the first half, but when things started separating, Joe, I saw a team on the sideline that didn't care. Legitimately, I saw a team that didn't care. It was over. So, look, Mendoza had an interesting start of that Maryland game, by the way. Let me ask you this. What did you think of Mendoza's last game? I know that it was I
know the pick was bad. The pick was bad, and it was here's the way that I looked at it. Bad pick, bad start to a game. Game was weirdly close. And then in a blink, it was a blowout. And I think that says two things to me about this situation. Mendoza is the type of quarterback that he does not compound mistakes. He makes one mistake and he moves on. And I think that offense, that team, the defense, they respond. That's the difference. They're one of the few teams that doesn't just go down and stay down. It's just like the Notre Dame game last year where they scratched the cloud and they tried to get back in it. Ohio State, they tried to stay in it as long as they could. They don't stop fighting.
Back in that Notre Dame game, I mean, they're kicking the ball on the onside kick.
Right. Well, but here's my point. That's kind of my point is that the Maryland game, they smoked them because the minute the things weren't going their way,
they shut down. They shut down too. Right. It is interesting. I'm kind of monitoring it. We'll see. It might be absolute nothing. Might be something massive here. Well, I like Mendoza. I don't know. Something looked off. Something looked off.
He can't be perfect every game. He's gonna be fine.
Very true. Buck with a $10 super chat says, "Gentlemen, I appreciate you and your show. It gets me through my day. Like the video and become a member. Any truth to Brian Hartline being an advocate for Urban or by Urban at Penn State as for head coach? OHIO."
Thank you, Dick Buck, and appreciate you for being a part of the Discord. I got to hook you up with a recommendation for good New Jersey pizza spot. But appreciate that as always. And the question about Brian Hartline, I mean, I get it. I know that he probably would like for an Ohio State guy to get into the mix and get an opportunity like that. I just still don't really understand why Hartline's getting job love this big. And I don't know if he makes a lot of sense for the Penn State job. I just seems kind of soon.
Where are they going, though?
I guess they were going with Urban
for them because that Bengals job's probably going to come open.
He's also not from Pennsylvania either. He's like, I just don't understand where this is coming from.
I think Joe Brady came from William and Mary, right?
Yeah. Joe Brady did.
Because that's who they're thinking they're getting, and I don't think Joe Brady has, unless he gets paid a shitload of money, I don't think he has any enticing feelings to go back to college. I might pay him a shitload of money.
Yeah. He's from Florida, so it also doesn't really.
I'm not. I wouldn't mind Brian Hartline because I know he's going to recruit his ass off.
Right.
He sure as hell is going to get a lot of elite receivers.
Right.
Which is the complete opposite of what's happened at Penn State.
It's a good point.
By the way, hold on. Penn State fans, you're going to have to let your next head coach rebuild here. You're not in a compete next year mode.
That's a fair point. I don't think that there's going to be much of an understanding of how.
No, there's not going to be. There's not going to be. So you better let this dude rebuild here. Dane Bergeron with a $5 super chat says, I'm glad LSU finally has a football guy as their AD. If reports are true and Verge is the AD, Verge is the AD. Joe, like I told you on Sunday, I mean, we were having conversations off the grid, and you were like, all right, you're joking with me. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Is he? I agree with you though on this that
I don't know if he's coming. I'm just telling you the truth. I mean, it's Joe. It's what went down in real time.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with this. Not to rehash the conversation from earlier, but we'll see what it does for it.
Penn Jones with a $2 super chat says Mississippi State upsets Georgia this weekend.
No, come on, man. Come on. It's not happening.
Not as bad as Mississippi State's run defense has been. If they're past,
that's my point.
Like if this were any other team, like if you would have said Bama, I'd be like, all right. It's just their biggest strength is their biggest weakness. I mean, look, maybe Georgia. Who knows? Titan says Sam Pittman to Penn State. I think Sam Pittman's going to retire and go drink some cold beer.
Yeah, I think that he needs to. I don't know how old Sam Pittman is. Sam Pittman is. Oh, he's 63. Dude, he's going to retire. What are we talking about here?
No, he could barely walk.
Yeah.
He just had a hip replacement. Let the man live.
I think he needs to take some time off. Let
a man get his millions and let him get his millions and let him ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
But what a great guy, though, is Sam Pittman. Right. All right. We're out of here. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Rankings coming up next. Y'all go watch it and we'll react to it. See y'all then. Peace.